this conversation, as I mentioned, as I was walking in the circuit, it's kind of a 4-week thing on civic engagement and how you engage. You know, the conversations that we might have here in terms of debate are one thing. How you engage with your communities is really the key. Is this, how's this? You know, and as I was coming up here, I was thinking a little bit about civic engagement. And so I guess one of the quick questions, you know, fundamentally is, how many of you voted? That's a pretty good start. Twice, somebody say? It's the Chicago school. You know, but one of the things as I was thinking about this that I looked up was that, you know, our just past elections, the midterm elections, we had the highest voter turnout in the country in over a century. Anybody want to guess what that turnout was? You can. It's 48%. 48% of the voters voted in what was our highest turnout for an election, in a midterm election. So what does that mean when you talk about engagement? It gets interesting. These guys probably aren't ecstatic about where the House of Representatives landed. I mean, not really. Not really. No. But if you run the quick numbers on a 48% turnout, what it could mean is that those districts flipped by somebody who got about 25% of the vote. Right? Because people didn't come out, people didn't engage. You know, by the same token, there are probably a lot of folks sitting here that weren't ecstatic about what occurred in our last presidential. But if you look at those percentages again, you're looking at about 55 to 60% turnout with a minority president. So if you look at eligible voters and civic engagement, we just elected a president with about 30% of our eligible voters in this country. Whether you like them or not. 30% of the people of this country, because the other 40% more or less did not engage. It's a big deal, folks. You like Central Transit? Anybody use Central Transit? We passed that here, right? We passed it with about, I think it was about 73% of the vote. But the cool thing was, only about 25% of the eligible voters turned out. Right? So, and I sponsored that, so I'm glad. But in terms of that engagement and how you use the political process, it meant that we voted as a community to tax ourselves to support Central Transit with about 12% of the eligible voters engaged in that conversation. You know, and I mean, the other piece for me, you know, I mean, in the city, I think I'm the mayor, it's the mayor. We have what we call a weak mayor system, and our city council is nonpartisan, right? So nonpartisan means I don't have to run as either as a D or as an R. I just have to run. And what ends up occurring then is, I think in certain ways it allows us to engage in our community differently in those conversations than what you're going to hear around political positioning today as you go through the debate. And what I mean when I say that is, I was thinking about an example coming up here. I mean, legislature did a whole bunch of crap basically to help you guys pay for your education in this last session, right? So, how many of you would have been willing to work to lower your tuition? Right. How many? You guys?
Yeah.
Cool. You guys?
Schools are too expensive.
How many of you would have been happy to work not only for that tuition waiver or the loan or whatever they're calling it, but also to have included room, board, and books in that package? You guys? Cool. So part of what happens in a local community, at the level that I function in terms of engagement, is that we don't pay quite as much attention to the cacophony that's coming out of Washington or even out of Olympia. My party, what I call my party, is the party of the radical center. And what it means is, I'm going to reach out to you. We had a conversation earlier about the recycling the bags, right? I don't know if you would support the nickel we put on the bags, you know, when you go to focused or not. But I'm going to reach out to him if he's on council so we can have a conversation so hopefully I can get his vote. Because the ultimate piece we're going to focus on in a community like this is not gridlock, but how do we get it done? Okay? That's the party of the radical center for me. And that's how, in a lot of ways, I think, when you look at local politics, your local and civic engagement piece is about a conversation between people who could be radically opposed, but coming together in a self-interest to get things accomplished. And it becomes very different, I think, than often the conversation we have at both the state and federal level. I don't want to go rambling on. So I do want to encourage. I was talking to these guys earlier. Most of you, I don't know where you are in your college career. The city really, really is committed to attempting to hear your voices as we're going through this. You are part of this community. We recognize, and certainly I recognize, that you're part of this community. I mentioned Central Transit. Since we began Central Transit, you guys supported with your fees. We've had a member of your student government sitting on our advisory committee talking about what's the best way to serve students, what's the best way to serve the community. There are boards and commissions our city has where there are vacancies where you can engage. The Environmental Commission, Planning Commission, there's a range of areas where you do not need to run for office, you need to simply apply. And if you're interested at all, actually what I might do exactly is just leave some of my cards at the table. I've got get a hold of me if you'd like. Has my cell, you can text me. Has my email if you want to email me. If you go on the City of Ellensbury's website, you can also see what the boards and commissions are. But we would love to have you part of the conversation in this community as we're moving forward and setting policy. So thanks for inviting me, and good luck. I think. I'm not sure that that's the right word.
Thank you, Mayor Todd.
Can we get a round of applause for Mayor Todd, please?
It's always a bad deal when he has to ask for it. I'm just saying.
Sorry. All right. Get situated. Hi, everyone. My name is Zach Turner. I'm going to be moderating the debate for you tonight. Is this good volume? No? Is this on? Is this better? Yeah. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just pressing buttons.
Hello.
How's that? A little better? I don't even know if it's making it louder. I might just be speaking. Okay. I'm just going to hold it because it's wrong. So, hi, my name is Zachary Turner. I'm going to be moderating the debate tonight. So, I'm going to just go through the structure of the debate real quick. Each club will have 5 minutes for an opening statement. Then we will go to the first set of prepared questions. The first was decided by a coin toss earlier, and it's the Young Democrats. So the Young Democrats will be going first. Each club will have 2 minutes to answer questions. After both clubs have answered the questions, there will be an additional 1 minute period for both clubs to do a rebuttal. After all the prepared questions are done, we will move to questions from the audience. Each club will again have 2 minutes, but there will be no rebuttal. Once questions have ended, both clubs will have 5 minutes for a closing statement, and a coin toss will again decide who goes first during the closing statement. We can go straight into the opening statements from the Young Democrats unless there's any questions first. Oh. I don't know. Do you want to just introduce yourselves real quick? I just don't know everyone's name. I'm sorry. On the other side.
Cool. Hi, I'm Peyton. Peyton Swinford, president of the Central Washington University Young Democrats.
My name's Alina Stuckey. I am part of Young Democrats. Have no position. You're PR. I'm PR. Yeah.
I'm Karina Solorio. I am historian of Young Dems.
I'm Morgan Burrell. I'm the treasurer.
Hi, my name is Jakari Aja Singh, and I'm a member of the Young Democrats.
Do you want to go through introductions?
All right, my name is Daniel Fulmer. I'm the president of Turning Point USA here at Central.
My name is Andrew Meyer. I'm a member of TPUSA.
My name is Corbin Epp. I'm the vice president of TPUSA.
My name is Udit Lagaraj. I am an officer.
All right, well, thank you so much. Peyton, if you want to go ahead and go for the opening statement, you have 5 minutes. We'll be timing.
Well, we are the Central Washington University Young Democrats. We meet every Monday at 5 o'clock up in Circ 271. Our club recently turned 1 year old, so in our first year as a club, we have registered hundreds of students to vote. We have hosted an event with United States Senator Marie Cantwell. We have traveled multiple times around the state, and we have even won Young Democrats of Washington Chapter of the Year for all of our work this year. Yeah, so overall it's been a pretty successful year. We try to do as much as we can to do as much professional development for our members as possible. Anyone who identifies as like progressive, Democrat, or liberal is welcome in our club, and we try to do as much as we can to help promote you. Despite the baggage that might come with a major political party, we do not shy away from the label of Democrat. We believe that no human is illegal, corporations are not people, healthcare is a right, not a privilege, global warming is real and demands immediate action. Yeah, we're looking forward to open and productive dialogue about some hot button issues. So yeah, have fun. What? What about?
They said that. Yeah. Sorry. All right, thank you. Do you want to go to Turning Point for opening statement?
All right, Turning Point is, this is our first full year here on campus. It was started last spring quarter. We haven't been super active this year, but we've held several meetings, and in the future our meetings will be held every other Thursday in either Black Hall 151 or 150. In short, Turning Point, it is a conservative club, it's a libertarian club, but it is not a decidedly Republican club. We welcome people of every political party and view to come and discuss their opinions on whatever topic they choose and whatever topic we're presenting for the night. So while we haven't been super active with meetings this year, we have been working with the Turning Point National Organization to figure out how to run the club as more of a discussion space and not so much a lecture on a certain topic every meeting.
Great. Thank you so much. Yeah, did you want to say something?
And we also table out in the CERT, and we give out free stickers and badges and posters.
No way.
And stuff.
Nice.
Y'all like free stuff.
Go get your free stuff. All right, so we are going to go right into the first question, which is for the Young Democrats. How does your group differ from mainstream Democrats, if at all? And you have 2 minutes.
Cool. Well, this question is kind of unique to each and every one of our members. We are kind of just like a club of leftists, I get that's not. There's no one word that kind of collects all of our ideologies. We have everything from center left to communist, and all members in that spectrum agree with the same level of enthusiasm. Just generally speaking, as a younger group, we are more progressive than the Democratic Party. We have some different priorities, maybe debt-free college, and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Great, thank you. Turning Point, same question for you. How does your group differ from the Republican Party? 2 minutes.
Well, Yeah, so like Daniel said, we're conservative and a little libertarian, a little both. And what we want to try and do is, more appeal to college students. We don't want to come off as like certainly old crotchety Republican guys. You know, we want to be a little more lukewarm, I guess, but certainly open to hearing from other sides and having conversations and stuff. So it's not that we would always say, like, yes, we are always going to support Republicans regardless. Like, well, no, I mean, hands down, we're like conservative and we support anybody who we think, you know, has some good ideas on their agendas and stuff, whether it be Republican or Democrat or independent. You know, we're always open, so.
Great, thank you. So the next question is going to be back at Turning Point. Should guns be allowed on college campuses?
We believe that as long as you are a responsible member of society and you don't have any outstanding criminal charges, that guns should be allowed on campus. You should be allowed to carry, and specifically concealed carry with the correct permit and training and all the associated things that you have to do to carry. The people are afraid of guns on campus because they see these mass shootings, these school shootings, and they're horrible events. Nobody wants them to happen, and people think if there's guns on campus that they will happen. We provide the viewpoint of if people are concealed carrying, an attacker is less likely to come to the campus with concealed carry allowed because they don't know if they're going to get shot right off the bat. And so, yeah, obviously if you're a criminal, probably shouldn't have guns. There are laws in place to keep you from having that. But if you're responsible, guns, concealed carry on campus, open carry on campus for like ROTC students or demonstrations, we think is perfectly acceptable.
Great. Thank you. Same question for the Young Democrats. Should guns be allowed on college campuses?
So we take the position that they should not be allowed. And can you hear me? Is this good?
A little closer.
This good? Anyway, so as someone who actually has their concealed permit carry on them right now, and I personally, we should not allow guns on campus. There was a study by New York City Crime Division that from 2001 to 2016, there was 190 incidents of gun violence on college campus. Of those 190 incidents, 437 were shot, 167 were killed, 270 were wounded. And the number of casualties from 2011 to 2016 represents a 240% increase of the casualty rate from the 2001 to 2006 casualty rate. And what that says that it's only growing, and it's exponentially growing as well. There's 8 states that allow open carry on campus, and it's called the right to carry. And of those states that have the right to carry, the mortality rates of school shootings jump from 7 to 8.4 people. So it shows that when you allow more guns on campus, there will be more shootings. I think there's a causality rate between guns and shootings. I think that's fair to say. Additionally, there was a study showing that most gun violence on campus is not from an active shooter. That's 2.4% of all gun violence on campus is actually from interpersonal disputes or suicide. So I don't think as rampant as depression is on the college campus, we should allow people to carry guns on campus. What if you have depression, you get a bad test grade, and you think you're not worth anything? We all had a bad test grade and been sad. Some people may take it to the next step. Additionally, any school that becomes a right to carry has to spend millions in retrofitting their campus to be safe for a gun to have. University of Texas is spending $4 million.
10 seconds.
I'm sorry.
You just had a few seconds, sorry.
Okay, so University of Texas is spending $4 million to retrofit their campus with metal detectors and lockers so that the guns feel safe on campus and so that...
All right. That's your time.
Okay.
Gotta stop you. Yeah, so Leah's going to put up her hands when it's around 10 seconds to let you know when it's over. So, Turning Point, you have 1 minute for a rebuttal.
So you say that you have a permit. Why do you want to purposely disarm yourself the second you come on campus?
So
I have a permit too. I carry a gun.
Can I
I have to
respond?
disarm myself the second I come onto this campus because why? Because some liberal lawmaker doesn't like guns? I mean, seriously, Texas has had this for years. There is not an issue down in Texas. Why do you want to purposely disarm yourself the second you walk onto this campus?
now can I talk?
Yeah, let's.
Do you want
let's
them to
chat.
respond?
This is a chat. Come on, let's
I
chat
don't
here.
know. I have to follow the rules.
What's
Yeah.
that?
I have to
So
follow
this
the
is your
rules.
time. You have 30 seconds. They're going to get an additional minute if you want.
We can't go back
Yeah.
and forth?
That's just not how.
Well, I thought it was a debate.
We've been going over the rules for the last few weeks.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
It's the format.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm going to give you an extra like 20 seconds to talk if you want. If not, I'll give it over to them to respond for their minute.
I'll respond a little bit. So,
Okay.
especially with those colleges that you're talking about that do allow concealed carry, do allow guns on campus. So another important thing to take into account is the demographics of the area, crime rates in the area outside of the campus. Like, what is the overall climate that these people are being raised in? Like, are they lower economic sectors? Because they do have higher crime rates. That would make sense then, because all this stuff factors into higher gun crime rates, of course.
All right, that's the time for you. All right, Young Democrats, if you'd like to respond, you have 1 minute.
In response to your latest thing about where the gun violence is happening, so University of Houston had a huge increase, and that's in a very rich city. So like that's not a low-income area. Houston's on the upswing. It's like one of the most well-endowed cities in Texas. So I think that argument actually, if I'm gonna be honest, as someone of color, has a racial taint to it, and I don't enjoy that. As well, to why I disarm myself on campus, it's because I want to feel the campus is safe, and I think if you have a gun on campus and people know that, they will feel unsafe on campus as well. My gun is back on the west side because I don't think that I want to have a gun near me when I'm going through a stressful time at a school. School is stressful, and stress leads to bad decisions. Does anyone have anything else to say?
You have 5 seconds. If you want.
I'm good.
All right, great. So we are moving on to the next question, which is Young Democrats go first. Is healthcare a right or a privilege?
How long do I have?
You have 2 minutes.
2 minutes? Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. All right. So I'll see if I can say all this, but healthcare is a right. Healthcare is not just a right; it's a human right. Human rights are the fundamental rights that every human should be given because it is a necessity to have a good quality life. Internationally, the United Nations has agreed with this sentiment, and it's codified the UN's Universal Declaration of Human Rights in the mid-20th century. In 1966, they took it a step further and also made another treaty called the Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. And in Article 12 within this, they state the right of everyone to the enjoyment of the highest attainable standard of physical and mental health is what we should be looking for globally. Looking at the United States, one of the biggest problems is that there isn't a real healthcare system. There is a health insurance system. This is important to point out because, again, the United States don't see healthcare as a right, and it's not written in any way or reflected in any document within the law. Now, if we look at like the Affordable Care Act that was instituted under Obama, it helped a lot of people, but it also hurt a lot of people because of high premiums, and people weren't able to afford it. The ACA was supposed to be a stepping stone in the direction of providing affordable health care for all people in the United States. And this idea wasn't exclusive to Obama because Mitt Romney had proposed a similar kind of structure for healthcare also. The bigger problem is the system needs to be reformed, and a real healthcare plan needs to be put in place, or a healthcare system. Insurance is something people have in case of an emergency, but healthcare isn't an emergency. It's something people should have access to care for pre-existing conditions and preventative care, as well as emergencies if they come up. A quote I got from this author, his name's W. Lance Bennett. It goes, this is what it reads as: "It's hard for most Americans to imagine that freedom and competition do not automatically guarantee best results." So basically, that competition isn't going to take care of everybody. That's why we actually need to reform our entire healthcare system and add more stepping stones.
Great, perfect. Thank you. Turning Point, same question for you. Should healthcare be a right or a privilege?
Okay, so Turning Point's view is that healthcare is a commodity. So in every country that says it is a right, they're having a growing financial crisis right now because Medicare costs, socialized healthcare costs are becoming more and more and more of their yearly budget. So in countries like, and also it does not meet the needs of everybody. You have over 6 million people in Britain, waiting for care, with at least 200,000 people having to wait at least 6 months to get primary care. ERs in countries that have socialized medicine like UK, Canada, and France have mass amounts of people waiting in filthy conditions. That's because in the system, everyone with a condition goes to the ER to find out what's wrong with them instead of having an insurance company that helps you pay for an option or an appointment based on the individual. Like even Toronto is considering switching to free market health because it is increasing their budget. But to keep going with this issue, so when the government says healthcare is a right, and say like Bernie Sanders is going to say to the doctors now, you guys have to work, we're going to pay you this much amount of money, and you're going to see these patients and take care of these things. You're lowering the cost, and you're ruining the incentive for people to become doctors when you say you're only going to work for this price. Whereas if you have a free market system, so in a case like LASIK eye surgery, used to be $20,000 an eye, but it costs now $3,000 to $4,000 an eye. That's because this is a competitive market. Insurance companies won't cover it. However, people want to be optometrists. Optometrists are one of the 4 medical professions that get a lot of money. So there's your incentive. There are now a lot of optometrists that want to perform this, and there is a market for it. So when doctors are available, they're going to address this, and they're going to help everybody. Free market system solved this. You do not need government to help solve this issue.
Great. Time. Rebuttal from Young Democrats?
Yeah, I'll take that one. So the argument that socialized countries with socialized healthcare, healthcare has become more expensive and more has been spent in healthcare in those countries since then. I think that's a weird argument because I think those countries are using more on healthcare because more people can afford healthcare and more people can use it. So I think them spending more means that more people are getting services and not dying on the street. So the U.S. Already spends more proportionally, like per person, on healthcare than any other country. So I don't see where that argument is coming from. Seeing healthcare as like a commodity, I think, is a problematic view. I get the advocacy for free markets and all that stuff, but to what point can you look at something and think like money should be able to buy this? Like
right. Time. It's the end of your time.
Okay, that's fine.
Turning Point, do you have a rebuttal? Great.
Who's on? Okay.
Yeah.
So I like to say when Obamacare rolled out, my parents own our own business. We're entrepreneurs. And our healthcare rates doubled, and we lost coverage when that rolled out. But your necessity does not change the basic math. It's a commodity. You need profit incentive and freedom of labor. That's how we get the price of private healthcare to be lowered. You're more concerned with taking credit for making a right healthcare than actually trying to help people.
Great, thank you. The next question starts with Turning Point. Should post-secondary education be debt-free? In other words, kind of socialized and government paid.
No. So I think more the problem that we need to focus on right now is instead of encouraging all kids, like, hey, in order to be successful in life, you need to go to college. You need to go to university. You need to pay a lot of money, get a degree, and that's going to find your job. But you have a lot of people coming into school, they don't know what they want to do, and then they drop out. So instead of going and encouraging them, hey, why don't you go to a trade school for welding? Okay, one of my friends who I grew up with in high school he's a self-made blacksmith, but he also wants to do welding. Instead of going to a university like Central to get his degree, he went to Snow Isle Tech, which is a community college, a lot cheaper, and he got great education. Now he transferred to a university for a cheaper price in Texas, and he's learning stuff like that. A lot less money, and now welding is one of the highest paid engineering gigs right now. There is a high demand for that. But besides that fact, is kids are coming to college not wanting to know what they want to do, instead of going to cheaper community colleges or trade schools, apprenticeships like that. It's a better option for them instead of them having to come here and waste money. So,
Great. Thank you. Young Democrats, same question for you. Should post-secondary education be debt-free?
We are of the opinion that post-secondary education should be debt-free. I'm going to throw out a quick number. It is $1,531,800,029,600, and that's the amount of student debt the U.S. has right now, and that's above all of our heads. And this is going to be a facing crisis in the next 20 years. And with the rise of automation, there are going to be less and less like low-skilled jobs. So high-skilled technical degrees are going to be more in demand. And so you're going to have to go to college to get this. And so debt-free college doesn't mean we just cover your tuition. It means, hey, we're also allowing you to just use scholarships to pay for your housing, your food costs, and other things. It's saying when you leave college, you won't have any debt to stop you from starting your own job. So we can have like more entrepreneurs, more self-made people. But people who come out of school with major amounts of debt, they have to put off buying their first house, buying a car, moving out of their parents' house for years. And that's how you hurt the economy. And that's how you stifle lower income people to like be able to afford college and be able to start their lives. Debt-free college will allow people who don't have as much opportunity to be able to go to college without the fear that they will not be able to afford anything when they come out. And debt-free college also allow a community college to be tuition-free. It'll be subsidized by the state. And it will allow people to actually try what they want to do first, then go to a four-year college, the same thing they're saying, but this time they actually won't be able to maybe go in debt to do it because community college still costs money. Another thing, we could actually have the system now. It's just a reorganizing of money. So if we allow scholarships and grants to be used for off-campus stuff like housing, food, and car, that'll cover a lot of people's expenses, as well as if we just spend more on federal education as well.
Great. Thank you. Where are we? Turning point, a rebuttal.
So the idea that you are somehow a victim of your own debt is preposterous. You took on the debt. You knew how much the school was. You chose to go to college. This college, like every other college, is too expensive. It's insane. What you really should do is go to the trades. There's money in trades. There's money to be a welder, to be an electrician, to be a plumber. The idea that you're somehow a victim of debt that you purposely took on, you're not a victim of this, and I don't want to pay for it. I doubt that everybody else here wants to pay for my debt. It's preposterous, quite frankly. There's incredible economic mobility in this country. If you even don't go to college, you can still move up. You can still earn good money. You don't need a degree. We should move away from forcing people to get degrees that they don't even want, like degrees in like the humanities and stuff, lesbian, dance theory, whatever. Those are stupid degrees. Get a good degree like a business management. Go into the STEM sciences. Do something useful if you want to take on the debt.
All right. Yikes. Okay, Young Democrats, rebuttal.
First off, can I go to trade school to become a doctor? No, I can't. So that's a dumb thing to begin with. Also, so victim of your own debt, to get anywhere in life now requires at least a bachelor's degree. So I'm a victim of my society, to be honest. As well as that, like, you need a bachelor's degree minimum. Bachelor's degrees are new high school degrees. So you have to go to college, as well as that people who go to college help the economy, as well that by debt-free college, the number 9% of people can't pay their student loans, and so that money is never going back into the economy. By having debt-free college, we allow the money to be used to help us. Anyone have anything to say?
10 seconds.
And I'd also just like to say that we used to have a lot of good debt forgiveness programs, but under this current administration, that's being rolled back as well. So you're now taking away from it where we actually had something that could solve the problem.
Great.
I also forgot.
We're out of time.
Oh.
I'm sorry. I just want to acknowledge that things got a little heated in that, and just remind you to not attack each other or like people. Attack each other's ideas all you want. Just
Also, crowd, please remain respectful as well. If you hear something you like, please snap. Don't boo. If you hear something you don't like, there will be time for questions after, and I'm sure you can talk to some of the club members as well. After the event, there will be. Oh, okay. There will be time for you after this is done for you to approach the club members and ask questions and engage in a dialogue with them. But please remember to snap if you hear something you like, or clap, whatever, but don't boo or laugh, please. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next question is for the Young Democrats. What do you propose we do about climate change? How urgent is it?
So I just want to make sure we're all on the same page about climate change, and just in case anyone has had misunderstanding or is unaware, but we are currently reaching the highest levels of CO2 ever recorded. For millions of years, CO2 levels and temperatures have gone up and down naturally, but natural isn't the key here, speed is. If CO2 levels rise fast and the planet heats up too fast, it could be a massacre. And since the 1950s, the Earth has experienced a 60% decrease in all animal populations. Even when the Earth was empty, levels rose fast, but it took thousands of years. Now we could be going back to those levels, but within only a few hundred years. CO2 levels will continue to rise for decades to come, largely due to greenhouse gases produced by human activity. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which includes more than 1,300 scientists in the United States and other countries, forecast a temperature rise of 2.5 to 10 degrees Fahrenheit over the next century. So now we have established that it's urgent. So how do we combat it? First, I think we need to completely shift our economy from the stranglehold of fossil fuel that fossil fuel has on our economy and on our society. So where do we start in that? For example, institutions need to divest from fossil fuel and towards renewables. Another way we can combat it is regulating these corrupt and destructive industries, but of course there's a larger picture here. That we need to acknowledge that the constant growth economy or capitalism is inherently degrading and oppressive to our planet and to the lower to middle class and minorities. But of course, baby steps. So I believe the way that we can move forward from here is to regulate and divest from fossil fuels that is killing our planet. Thanks.
Thank you. Turning Point, same question for you. What do you propose we do about climate change? How urgent is it?
Well, actually, I think this is one good one because there are some similarities that I think we have. At least, yeah, we could definitely agree, yeah. We know man is responsible for some of the climate change. Whether and how much, that could be debated. But, and as far as like switching from non-renewable resources like fossil fuels to renewable sources, like, yeah, that's good. It's just how are you going to do that? I think instead of using the government to implement that and force changes like Green New Deal, except that was a really big package deal. That was a giant step that people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez wanted to take, but a lot of things in that were unspecific about how you were going to address this, and big leaps. Let's go on smaller steps. So going back to the thing about fossil fuels and renewable resources, right now, companies aren't interested. So because this stuff is cheaper in the market. So like cars, planes, any kind of automobile that takes gasoline right now, this is what everybody uses. You'd have to convince companies to start buying this stuff and switching from oil into wind energy and stuff like that. You have to make electric cars a hell of a lot cheaper so that people want to buy them, so that people will be using renewable resources. Okay? You just appeal to the market to start using this and convince them that you're going to make a buck off of this, and it is going to help the planet. And that's my time.
Great. Young Democrats, you have a minute for a rebuttal.
I just want to say that it's not appealing or have to appeal to the markets, I think it's pretty appealing when investing in clean energy efficiency and other sustainable technologies can be even more profitable than fossil fuels. It's a growing market with over $260 billion invested globally. So it's a safe place to invest your money and to move forward from here. We're currently trying to get Central to divest from fossil fuels, and by doing that, we're going to be persuading them that, or pushing the idea that it's way more profitable and is a safer place to invest your money. And this is true for all our other institutions, not just universities.
20 seconds.
Just real quick. Capitalism is never going to solve all of climate change. If you do not tell a company that they cannot produce environment-killing hairspray, they're going to keep producing environment-killing hairspray as long as it makes us a profit. We need regulations, and capitalism is not going to solve climate change.
All right. Turning Point, 1 minute.
All right. So one of the big points on like climate change and where we disagree is right now there are several major restrictions on using renewable resources for power. There are dry seasons for wind. There's a large chunk of the year, especially here, where there isn't a whole ton of wind. Yes, we get a lot of wind in the summer, but look at the winter. It's not that windy. Same thing when you're talking about solar. Like, you can't charge solar batteries during the night. And even the batteries that we use to hold the energy that we get from solar panels and windmills, they aren't big enough yet to like deploy and use to fully switch from coal and gas. You don't have any environmental restrictions aside from the non-renewableness of gas and coal. You don't have to wait until it's day. You don't have to wait till
All
it's
right,
windy.
that's your time. Thank you. So the next question starts with Turning Point. Should formerly incarcerated people be able to vote?
If you have no criminal standing, I don't see a reason why you shouldn't vote. If you're a sex offender, you shouldn't be able to vote. If you're still on probation, you shouldn't be able to vote. If you're still in prison, you should not be able to vote. If you are out of prison, you've paid your debt to society, and you have no outstanding criminal convictions or criminal status, I don't see a problem with you voting.
Okay. Young Democrats?
I cannot imagine any circumstance under any reason why any single person should not have the right to vote if they're an adult in the United States, and they're a citizen. Like, if someone has a felony, this is someone who is, a part of our society, and this is someone who has been failed by our society. And to give them their natural, their democratic way of changing the world that has wronged them, if we take that away and just shun them from the democratic world, what different means of recourse do we leave them? There's nothing negative. If you let murderers vote, they're not going to vote and make murder legal. I don't think that's going to happen.
You have 1 more minute if anyone else wants to say anything.
Do you want to say?
And I would also just say with that point, when we look at like other industrialized countries, they've also introduced this idea. And they also, well, first of all, they handle their criminals differently than we do. So they're actually giving them rights and actually rehabilitating them instead of like punishing them for every single thing they've done. We look at the majority of the prison population, they're actually in prison because of nonviolent drug offenses. And most of them who are in prison are usually black and brown men. So I don't understand why their right to vote should be taken away because of drug offenses that were nonviolent. I mean, we live in an age where legalizing marijuana and there are other things that are becoming legalized. So what is the point of taking away their right to vote? Have they really done anything that's bad? And if they have, it was based on old laws that don't really matter anymore because we're progressing as a society as other parts of the world are also.
Right, great. Just about out of time. So Turning Point, rebuttal? You don't have to if you don't want to.
So as far as what we contribute to society, I don't remember us agreeing, hey, murder, robbery, arson, any kind of criminal offense being part of what we consider good society. So I don't understand from that point. And just because other countries do it doesn't mean that it's morally right. Okay, and the thing about the U.S. not rehabilitating, Donald Trump just signed a new criminal reform justice system. He said he signed a bill that would help criminals who want to get out of prison, who have a good record, go through rehabilitation programs and put them back into society. So that's not true.
You have about 10 more seconds.
So when you're born, you basically sign a social contract that you'll obey to all the laws. Once you break that law, and depending on how you're judged, you should not have the right.
Okay, Young Democrats, rebuttal? 1 minute.
Unless somebody else wants to go.
You got it?
I was just going to say that, like, putting people in prison historically has been a way to suppress someone's vote. So I think that, like, yeah. So I just want to say that. But
So, and also leading on to that point, we don't have enough time, and I'd love to talk with you all after. We don't have enough time to delve into the history of how our prison system has worked. And again, most of the population, nonviolent drug offenders. So it's not not everybody who's in jail or prison are committing all these murders and things. So the general population of prisoners are people who, yes, maybe they had cocaine or marijuana or something on them. They're not bad people because of that. And I know the legislation you're speaking of that Trump put in this bipartisan agreement, it was something to take a step forward, but honestly, it doesn't really go as far as we need to. Now, a state like Florida, where it's been a swing state, they're actually doing some things that are really implementing and pushing for prisoners to be able to have these rights when they come out of prison. And that's under a governor who is Republican as well.
All right, and that's the rest of the time. The next question is for the Young Democrats. Should we abolish ICE?
Need a second.
Don't start yet.
Okay.
Yeah, don't start.
Okay. So the primary function of the Immigration Customs Enforcement, which is ICE, is to detain, arrest, and deport all unauthorized migrants, immigrants, and refugees that cannot prove lawful status within the United States. This has been a very problematic department for multiple reasons. First of all, it's very inhumane of the way they have treated their detainees, pretty much. Yeah. So, I'm sorry, I wasn't prepared. So under President Obama actually had a record-breaking number of deportations, but under the present administration, the Trump administration, sorry, there has actually been far more arrests, which is not good. Wait, can I just take a break?
Yeah? Yeah? You have just like a minute? Just need...
We have to do that for the other side then too? If they want
Do you want to just...
it would only be fair.
I don't know.
Yeah, we will. I mean...
Is it okay if they just have like 10, 15 seconds to just gather thoughts for a second?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the only thing I'm worried about.
I think there's just some stage fright. Okay. Yeah. You can request it at a time if you need. We'll time a minute and then... Yeah, if you need a minute at any time, so...
No, but that's not a part of ICE.
It's not part of
It's
it?
like the thing.
Sure. Talk about them.
I don't have one.
Why would you even say that?
You can talk about them in person, police officers.
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a lot of good.
In the meantime, Leah's going to tell some great jokes, so take it away, Leah.
Oh gosh. I don't have any jokes, but yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to provide some comedic relief, but I'm not great at that. So,
Yeah, that's right.
yeah. Hope everyone's having a good day. Yeah? Yep?
Wait, I'm good.
Okay.
Hey, we're good.
We're good. All right.
Sorry about it. We had technical difficulties.
All right, so you have 1 more minute. Go ahead.
Okay, so it's important to note that Customs and Border Protection is different from ICE. So ICE is actually not responsible for implementing the zero tolerance immigration policy that was just recently added that kind of separated the families in the border. ICE, however, is tasked with housing detainees while they go through the deportation process. Abolish ICE is fundamentally an anti-deportation movement to put an end to the cruel and inhumane treatment of immigrants, both while being detained and while being held in detention centers. Despite ICE's long history of human rights violations, the agency has remained unaccountable to the courts, to the committees, and to Congress, which has repeatedly urged ICE to improve the detention centers and address fiscal mismanagements. Demands the agency has largely ignored. Rather than meaningfully addressing these endemic problems in immigration detentions, the Trump administration has continued to aggressively target immigrants and asylum seekers by stripping away legal protections,
And that's
ramping
the time. Sorry. Sorry. All right, so do you need me to read the question again? Should we abolish ICE? Go for it. 2 minutes.
All right, so I can be pretty sure that all four of us up here and everybody who is involved in the Turning Point organization does not want to abolish ICE. ICE is here for a reason. There was the maltreatment of people in detention centers under ICE control started under Obama. Nobody heard anything then. We're only hearing stuff now because Trump's in office. You can deny that if you want, but it is true. And having an uncle that works in one of the detention centers, I've actually gotten a very good look into what is actually going on. If you look at the history of the world, in every world superpower country, they have standards that people have to follow to be able to be legally admitted into their country. And if people don't follow those standards, they can't legally be admitted. ICE is there to enforce our standards as a country to make sure we have the right people coming in.
Great. Young Democrats, rebuttal.
So what I would have to say to that too is that there are these standards. So first of all, they have rights because, again, if we are part of the United Nations, we're supposed to be following those laws. And I understand this is a bigger global government, but we're supposed to allow them to be able to come here, claim asylum, and come into our borders. Now, I didn't agree to that. That was what our country has done with the United Nations for a multitude of years. So, and of course, as us being the hegemon right now, where in the present time, they can kind of get out of that if they want to, and we've seen that with the Trump administration. The other thing I would say is that, yes, ICE did exist under Obama, and a lot of the reason why so many immigrants got deported was also because he had to make deals with the Republicans in Congress. But the other thing I would say is that Trump is taking ICE to another level we've never seen. They have a certain mileages they're allowed to be inside from borders. They're breaking those laws. They're walking up to people of color and literally just taking or asking them questions that they like. So I think the things they're doing is breaking their
Turning Point, 1 minute rebuttal.
Just a comment on that last thing there with officers seemingly walking up to people and just asking, "Oh, are you legal?" Those are extremely fringe cases. That accounts for less than 1% from multiple studies that I've read of ICE deportation and like finding out people that need to be deported. And yeah, like all the maltreatment stuff, it happened to the same magnitude, at least in the detention center that my family works in. There's not been a raise in the amount of maltreatment of people detained.
Great. So the next question is for Turning Point. Should we implement universal basic income?
No, we should not implement universal basic income. It will ruin the incentive to work. The common argument on the left is that, well, automation is going to come into play, therefore we're going to need a UBI, universal basic income. No, automation does not automatically just kill a bunch of jobs. Automation also creates a bunch of jobs. And this is also an incentive for people to go to trade schools, like I had mentioned before.
And yeah, while the automation argument is true, there will be a large number of jobs that are created to maintain the automation industry, maintain all the robots that are put in to automate jobs. So the exact jobs that robots are taking over, yeah, they might go to automation, but a whole new sector of jobs are going to open to maintain that new economy.
Great. Same question for the Young Democrats. Should we implement universal basic income?
So the Young Democrats believe that we should implement universal basic income. 1 second. There we go. And so I think before we even have a debate, we should talk about it, since it's such a nebulous an idea that no one really understands what it is. So what we're saying is that we should have a universal. Where is it? Our universal income is that we should have it so that you get money every month that puts you at or above the poverty line. We believe that there's no reason the richest country in the world should have people in poverty when we have enough money to help people get out of it. And it will not be a replacement for welfare, it will be an addition to. Because with welfare programs, let's say that you're in a welfare program and you have to make this much money to qualify, and you try to get a better job, you lose your benefits, and you might actually end up losing money by getting a better job on welfare. But by having this universal basic income, it allows you to have more secure job search. It also allows people to have more financial backing, and it will allow workers to band together and demand safer work environments, as they will have more money to fall back on in case something bad happens. It will also allow us to, as a society, to help the people in the most need that we have, and it will allow it will actually won't even cause that much problems. There was a study done by the Roosevelt Institute that found that universal basic income would pay for itself within 8 years, and as well that it would only increase inflation by 0.2%. So universal basic income would not hurt people, it would only help them. And the only thing that's still debatable is how much money people should get, but that's not what we're here to debate. We're here to debate an idea. Thank you.
Rebuttal from Turning Point.
All right. So while the people receiving universal basic income, the whole UBI concept, it won't hurt them. But for everybody else, everybody who pays tax in the U.S., they should not have to pay to just send their money to other people. We already have welfare programs. If you want to introduce UBI, have it be an alternative to current welfare programs. We shouldn't be taxing normal, everyday taxpayers to just hand out money to those that either can't work or are unwilling to work, in the words of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. It's just not our job. If the government gives these benefits, they have to get the money from somewhere, and that somewhere is the general taxpayer. So unless you would like to see your taxes go up, this is a horrible idea.
Great. Time. Young Democrats.
Yeah, so I'm just going to throw out there that if we actually tax the top 1%, we could pay for everyone to be out of poverty and then some. And I just think it's a little ridiculous that the amount of, okay, so as a lower to middle class person, I pay more taxes than Amazon, and I think that that's ridiculous. So I think you can't you can't say that it's all going to fall on the middle class. I think something else needs to happen, and that needs to be actually taxing people that should be taxed.
30 seconds.
And I would like to say, if everything's supposed to fall on the middle class, well, we don't really have a middle class anymore. It's either you're rich or you're poor, and there's a lot more poor people than there are rich people. So.
Also, besides poor, there's the working poor who are actually have a job and working for things, but they just can't afford anything because the cost of living is so damn high. Thank you.
And that's the time. We're just doing the one rebuttal after. I don't know. We can do at the end. Do you want them? If there's a consensus, if you want a 30-second rebuttal, I think that would be interesting.
Do you want to give them
if
the time that
they agree.
Yeah, give the time that we
Can we give them the time that we took earlier to have that stop?
Sure. Do you want 1 minute that they used earlier
Are you all good with
for
that?
the stop?
Is that cool? You all good with taking that time now that we took earlier?
Okay. Go ahead. You have 1 minute.
All right. So on the note of Amazon paying no tax, that is factually inaccurate. They pay no corporate income tax. That is the correct statement. To say they pay no tax at all is a complete lie. They do get tax breaks because they've created hundreds of thousands of jobs, but every tax besides corporate income they do pay. Just a word on that. And we do have a middle class. Your poor working class, if you want to get out of the poor working class, move to somewhere that isn't so expensive to live in. You don't need to live in LA, you don't need to live in San Francisco, you don't need to live in Seattle or New York. You can live in rural areas and still work, and your cost of living is going to be lower, so you're not going to be the working poor, you're going to be the middle class.
All right, great. So the next question starts with the Young Democrats. Fittingly, is corporate welfare an issue?
Okay, so I'll start off by giving the dictionary definition of corporate welfare. It's government support or subsidy of private business, such as by tax incentives. Seems a little innocuous until you start poking around a bit. So the government spends about $100 billion annually on corporate welfare. According to a 2012 Cato study, the amount includes direct grants and loans to companies as well as indirect aid for industries. That amount alone should make you angry. This money is coming straight out of the pockets of working poor people. So just focusing on state and local subsidies, they account for about $80 billion. General Motors was gifted $1.7 billion in subsidies. Amazon, Boeing, Microsoft each got over $200 million. Walmart gets $7.8 billion a year in corporate welfare. Another $1 billion is saved for using tax breaks and loopholes to write off capital investment costs. $607 million in federal taxes are avoided through lower tax rates on capital gains. $2.6 billion of corporate welfare is received in the form of social welfare programs such as SNAP, WIC, and Medicaid because Walmart doesn't offer a living wage for most of its employees. In 2013, a store in Canton, Ohio held a food drive for employees who were otherwise not had anything to eat for Thanksgiving. Another $100 billion is used for tax break and loopholes to write off capital investment. Oh, I just said that. Henry Ford paid his workers so well that they could afford to buy his cars. The Walton family pays so little that their employees can only afford to shop at Walmart. 2013, the state of Washington gave an extension on tax breaks to Boeing. That was a total of $8.7 billion. This is the single biggest state tax subsidy ever granted to an American company. Corporate welfare is not an issue. Corporate welfare is a manifestation of special interest spending problem. Can I just finish the last sentence? Yeah.
I'm sorry. We got to cut it off at 2 minutes, to be fair. Turning point is corporate welfare an issue? 2 minutes.
All right. Quick note. You did mention that these subsidies for businesses come from taxpayers. And that we should be mad about that. And I think that we should be mad about that. I don't like us being taxed to bail anybody out. My question is, why are you being upset over us being taxed on this issue and not about UBI, not about environmental regulations, the grocery bag tax? I think it's a pretty interesting standard that you have set.
And as much as companies do make a lot of money and how much people complain about how much they are not giving back to the worker, they still owe a huge debt in the fact that big companies supply a lot of jobs. Government can come in at some points to give them a break, to have them room to grow. If you keep taxing them, they're not going to want to do business in our country anymore. They're going to move away, say goodbye to those jobs.
You have 1 minute left or you can give it over.
I mean, it's important to also remind us of the fact that these businesses benefit people on the whole. Amazon has benefited millions of people through their products. We all use Amazon. Most of us, I'm sure, do. They also employ a ton of people who can now provide for their families. The free market's a beautiful thing. And making it easier for businesses to prosper is a wonderful thing. I don't know why we should be mad about that.
Great. So, Young Democrats, 1 minute.
Yeah. So I don't mind being taxed for, the plastic bag tax that keeps plastic out of our oceans. I also don't care that we're being taxed for social welfare programs because they provide baby formula and things for mothers who are poverty level. I do care that companies are not paying the taxes that they should and that they're getting tax cuts. Which benefit nobody but these big corporations. They pay their employees poverty level. They do provide jobs for lots of people, but they can't even afford to use their products. Amazon was forced by the community to raise the living raise the yeah.
I just want to quickly say
10 seconds.
that time.
Just a few seconds.
I quickly want to say I don't want to fund Apple, $1 trillion company that employs slave labor in China. I don't think that we should use our government money for that.
Okay, that's the time. Turning point, 1 minute.
I mean, just to go off of your point on Apple, I mean, sweatshops and slave labor, well, it does suck. It does make it a hell of a lot cheaper for everybody else here. So, I mean, we're not complaining about how our iPhones would be a hell of a lot more expensive if there wasn't slave labor or sweatshops. This shirt probably would have cost $100 if it wasn't made in a sweatshop. So.
Still have 45 seconds if you want to use it. Anyone? Some hot takes. All right. So moving on, the next question is for Turning Point. Should we decrease military funding?
Our answer is no. In fact, maybe the better idea is to reallocate it to different areas of the military that need, and it doesn't have to be combat oriented. It can be used for more facilities on the base. It can be for other logistical stuff. But here's the importance about the U.S. and our military is the U.S. has been the single most influential geopolitical nation of all time since, British Empire. Okay, we fought 2 world wars and changed the landscape of the entire world. After World War II, the U.S. helped rebuild the economy. But right now, and for many, many years, we've had to deal with very bad nations like Russia, North Korea, China. It is still important that we support our military, that we still keep it strong, to use it as deterrent. Not saying that they have to be deployed, but just saying to other countries like, hey, we are still a force to be reckoned with. Do not do bad stuff that's going to affect our neighbors, that's going to affect the economy, that's going to affect world relations. So it's important to keep our military up so other nations don't get any other ideas. We have been police officers of the world to help serve, protect, and since the Cold War stopped against the spread of communism.
That's all. You have 30 seconds if you want to use it.
30 seconds. All right. So on the whole reappropriation of funds, I suggest that instead of spending all of our money on combat, we should spend some of our money on space exploration, because right now the current state of NASA and SpaceX and any other space exploration companies, those aren't reliable right now. If there's military funding and military drive behind things such as space exploration, they will get done, and we will benefit as a human species in the end.
That's the time. Young Democrats, should we decrease military funding?
So according to Business Insider and Forbes, military spending is around $610 billion. This is $382 billion more than the next country, which is China. The United States already is spending much more than any other country in the world on their military. And as the reigning hegemon, this seems irresponsible. There are domestic, social, and environmental problems that could be handled with money that gets cut from the defense spending. Not only is the U.S. spending the largest amount of money on the military, but the current administration wants to raise the budget for the military anywhere from $700 to $750 billion, while also potentially cutting $2.7 trillion in domestic spending over the next decade, which would be for your welfare programs and other things. And this source is from the Associated Press. This would also be more than any other administration has done in the history of our nation. Our country is going in this direction and giving more money to the military, and we continue to neglect serious problems that we must deal with in our country and around the globe. The way this budget is written, in the words of J. David Cox, who is the head of the American Federation of Government Employees, would be a kick in the teeth to federal workers as well, who have endured years of pay freezes and benefit cuts, while also still recovering from our most recent partial government shutdown, which was also the longest in history. And the other thing I'd like to say to the point about us being the global police, we tried to play that role, and as the time went on, we decided we'd only do it within U.S. interest. So George Bush didn't go to war because he wanted to save the rights of other people. He went to war because he wanted oil. So the fact that we're still this moral police is not true. We may have been that in World War II somewhat, but it's really not the case anymore. And the other thing is that the one place that really does need to be fixed, I will say, in the military is veteran affairs, because there are still multiple problems under President Trump. Besides that, we can slowly start decreasing our use of military spending, and we don't have to do it drastically, but we could have a smart economic plan that also can be used for other things within our country and domestic problems that we're facing right now.
All right, and that's time. Turning Point, do you have a rebuttal?
Quickly, I want to say, just to confirm what you just said, you said that the VA is bad. In its current state, the VA is bad. The VA is a socialist healthcare organization. And if you're admitting it's bad, maybe we should apply that thinking to larger healthcare systems in general. And in regards to us only going into countries for U.S. interest, of course, we're only going in for our own interest. Because if it's not in our best interest to go in, even if it's a noble cause to go in, if it's going to completely screw us over and make us look weak, why should we do it? Why would you do that in any scenario? Why would you purposely show vulnerability when you could show strength?
Young Democrats? 1 minute.
And so again, I agree. The VA is something, and it's something that was made because when we have people who go to fight for our country, they're not necessarily the ones who are choosing to go to that fight, but we're sending them out based on our government leaders. So it's not fair to hold them accountable. They should be brought home and be able to have those certain programs. But when we talk about all the other things it's getting pulled from, and if you all would like this article from the AP in March this year, we're pulling money from justice, labor, energy, interior, health and human services, education, agricultural, housing and urban development, transportation, state and international programs. And these are on huge levels. All of these things are close or over 10% that we're pulling money from. So I don't understand why, with a country who is the hegemon, and not to mention, really, you have allies. If we look at the top 15 countries that use the most money for their military, we're probably allies with most of those countries. So I'm not really worried about people coming to attack America. And again, the global police thing is that people try to go in and they act like they're doing something correctly, but they're not actually.
It's your time. Thank you. Did we start with Young Democrats? Turning Point. Just kidding. Okay. We started that last question with Turning Point, correct? Yes. Cool. So the last question for the night, starting with the Young Democrats, should Citizens United be overturned?
Am I going to go? So Citizens United should be overturned. This court case has allowed big money to come into elections, and these corporations that are being treated like people have taken away the voice of actual citizens. Very few citizens have money they can use on this type of scale, which is why these corporations in many ways have drowned out the influence of people where people can donate to certain elections. Corporations, unions, and certain nonprofits are able to raise unlimited amounts of money to advocate for and against political candidates. The court case also allowed super PACs to be created, and these political committees have a light regulation and are used on a federal and state scale to heavily sway elections. According to a survey done by the University of Maryland, 88% of overall survey respondents want to reduce the influence of large campaign donors and the power that they wield over lawmakers. And then going deeper into these numbers, the same survey showed that 3/4 of every survey respondent, 85% being Democrat, 66% being Republican, backed the idea of a constitutional amendment to outlaw Citizens United. People have a right to be upset. In 2016, more than 1 out of every $5 spent in connection with presidential and congressional campaigns was spent by committees and groups with access to unlimited and unrestricted sources of funds. To go along with this, since 2002, there has been a rise in outside spending from around 2 to 3% to about 22% in the 2016 election. That was from OpenSecrets.org. Unlimited and unrestricted access to money is killing the people's voice in the United States, and it's really time to end this because these companies have so much power and sway that you get voices that are drowned out and you can't really control what these narratives that these companies are doing. And really historically, a long time in America, we actually did control how much money that these corporations, nonprofits could put in, and we didn't allow them to be able to basically stick their foot in and say, we're going to do what we want and we don't really care about citizens themselves.
All right, that's the time. Turning Point. Should Citizens United be overturned?
My short and concise thing is that no, the government does not get to dictate how much money is used in lobbying. Speech, whether paid for or not, is still free speech. It says the government cannot restrict independent expenditures, and I don't understand the reasoning why a person with more money, you would say that's a bad thing. It's just, to me, that doesn't correlate. It doesn't make sense to me. That's it.
Just into the mic. Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to me.
Okay.
Am I good to go?
Yeah, you guys have a minute and a half left if you want to use it. But okay, go.
So first, I'd like to say, so again, before this ruling and before 2010, they're corporations. So I understand we're counting them as people, but I'm talking about me, who is a person, versus a whole board, a whole administration of people in a company. So that still doesn't equate. Even though the law says we're the same, we're not. I am not sitting in my apartment in Student Village with millions and billions of dollars to be like, you know what? I'm going to donate to a campaign. So there's that. The other thing is that based on this small sample size that the University of Maryland did, actually people want to take money out of politics, big corporations. And this isn't just the Democrats, it's Republicans. And based off these numbers, you still have over 50% of Republicans who want to do that. So this isn't really, in some ways, it's almost like it's not a partisan issue, it's not a party issue. There are people both on the Democratic and Republican side who want to be able to take the money out of it.
5 seconds.
We're a little biased. Our club isn't backed by billionaires.
Yeah. 1 minute for Turning Point.
You're not backed by billionaires. Interesting. Hillary Clinton, the whole 2016 election, massive corporate donors. There's no way that she could have run without massive corporate donors. Unfortunately, our political system right now, at least in any national election, you need massive amounts of money. And as far as we care, companies and people, they should have the freedom to give their money, if they so choose, to whoever they want, because it's a tangible form of like approval in especially elections. So yeah, there shouldn't be any regulations saying that can't happen. It's people's and corporations' rights. Great.
And fun fact, Hillary Clinton was a president of a Young Republicans Club in college, which is interesting. With that, we're going to go into questions from the audience, and I'm going to give it over to Leah.
All right. Do we have anybody in the audience that has questions for club members, clubs as a whole? Oh, okay. Introduce yourself.
Okay, I'm Hannah. I had a question for the Young Democrats. I was kind of confused on your position on the ICE question, whether it should be abolished or not. So I just wanted you to kind of respond to that question again.
Yeah. So our stance is that it should be abolished. Since its beginning, ICE has routinely violated human rights. ICE agents and police officers often collude by engaging in racial profiling, warrantless searches, and detaining people without a probable cause, as well as fabricating evidence. ICE's increased use of decade-old misdemeanors as grounds for arrest of even longtime U.S. residents, appearing to focus particularly on nationals from Latin America and Muslim-majority countries, which makes it a race issue. It is an example of inhumane treatment and one example of this is in June of 2018, 144 people from a nursery were detained in Norwalk, Ohio. This arrest left 90 children with one parent and 20 children with 0 parents. So it created orphans pretty much. And a lot of the people that were arrested had no misdemeanors or minor misdemeanors. ICE has also been arresting a lot of victims of domestic violence, often while leaving local courthouses. Arrests like these have decreased complaints of violence in many immigrant communities, which means that thousands of people continue to live with abuse due to fear of deportation. This has become such a huge problem that even the agency itself has announced a new policy that's going to limit courthouse arrests. Additionally, ICE provides deadly substandard medical care to those in detention centers. 37 people as of 2015 have died under ICE custody, which makes it a humanitarian crisis, which is why it should be abolished, as well as everything.
Okay, and you all can ask questions of the other club as well. So.
Hey, thank you. Hey, first of all, good job to all of you. Love the fact that you guys are responding, and hey, it's been quite civil. That was the best I was hoping for. So, anyways, my question. I guess I'll give a little background. My name is Antonio, and of course, I was a student of Central Washington University, now alumni. My question in regards to speech now. Should there be limits to free speech here on university campuses anywhere? And that's to both clubs.
Do y'all take it first, or y'all can respond first? That's fine, because we got the first question came to us. That's fine.
Okay. So when you're saying limits on free speech, is there any specific thing that you have in mind? Because it is a very broad it's a very broad question.
Yeah, in particular, so actually about a couple of years ago, I performed on here during an open mic night, and it was during free speech week, I believe, or something like that. It was some sort of civil thing, and I discussed and performed a little bit about context and words, because one of the things that I have trouble is knowing what to say. And so what I want to know is, okay, is there a certain things that you shouldn't talk about? And I guess I might as well put it out there, like when you get into certain topics, such as when we're trying to discuss terrorism, there are certain things that, you know, some people would have to hold back on or not speak to clearly define what they're trying to ask. So what I'm asking is, are there like sort of, should there be limits to how deep a question goes, and you know, at the risk of offending somebody? That's what I mean by limits of free speech.
All right. So limits on free speech. There are legally defined limits right now. They're pretty bare bones. It's pretty much if you're inciting actual violence, if you're saying go out and terrorize a campus or a person, that's not allowed. And I think that that's a good line to draw. I think with any controversial topics that might come up, whether it be like race or immigration or comedy is a big one, be an aspiring maybe comedian, we need to be able to discuss these things, especially on a college campus. A college campus is the place where you develop as a person and you learn about other people and cultures. And without talking about the harsh topics in sometimes very blunt ways, there is no way to really learn about that. There just really isn't. Free speech should have as few limits as possible. The only limit is don't say, oh, go kill this person.
Yeah, 1 minute.
Also, another thing is, are you okay with having someone else determine what you can and cannot say? That's kind of scary. It's a little Orwellian, and they already do it in England. People in Canada, they've just passed a bill, C-16, that requires that people use gender-neutral pronouns or gender pronouns to a person's discretion. If they break that, they could be fined or put in jail. I mean, what if it's a mistake, honestly? Like, this is going a little too far. But also, again, with going on that thing, is like, so as far as, like, definitely racist stuff, like, yeah, I hope nobody endorses that. I hope nobody, like, talks about that. But at the same time, if we never hear it, then at one point, are we actually going to hear it and be able to reject it?
All right, and that's your time. Young Democrats, you have 2 minutes.
I just want to point out that there is a difference between free speech and hate speech.
And just adding on to that, yeah, I mean, I think in our camp we're kind of in the same kind of the same way. We like our free speech, but I think it should be respectful. And I do agree with you. Like, people do make mistakes sometimes. That does happen. And you know, the thing is, how do you learn from that? And I guess there's nothing you can really put in law. And if people choose to be ignorant on those things with free speech, then I guess I can't do anything. With the hate speech thing, we've seen, just in where we are right now, we've seen rises in it, and there's numbers to show in Washington State that there has been rises in hate speech, because unfortunately, and I'm not saying in any way that the people we're debating with, they're not like this, but there are people who decide that they're extremists, and they decide to do that. Now, the problem is that throughout our history, I mean, if we didn't have free speech, we wouldn't have things like civil rights and everything, but at the same time, it hasn't been monitored the same way for both sides. So, you know, you talk about civil rights movement, people are getting drowned out of what they wanted to say. There are people who are violence is threatened against them, and there's nothing done. So we progress from that, but again, the holding hasn't always been applied equitably throughout our country.
30 seconds.
Can we respond?
After
Can we ask questions? Or?
here, I'm gonna go.
So
real
they have
quick.
30 seconds of their time left. And we'll get to that. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I think free speech is about, like, if you say something that's not inciting violence, then you shouldn't be sent to jail for it. You know, I'm for that. Like, I'm for not sending people to jail for what they say. That's what free speech is all about. But I think there's a separate argument, an entirely separate argument that's like, maybe we shouldn't be giving a giant platform for white supremacists. Maybe we shouldn't be inviting people to come speak if they're outing LGBTQ people. You know, it's not anti-free speech to want your campus to be safe. We're not going to, yeah.
Time. Thanks. So originally we agreed upon no rebuttal for this period, just to get more questions.
I think this is a topic, if we can both agree, I think this is a topic that we can we can allow a little time
Sure.
for.
Let's give
If you wanna,
30-second rebuttal because I want to let people give more questions. So go ahead.
So on the white supremacist content, Turning Point, and I hope no other organizations, but Turning Point does not endorse white supremacist behaviors. I just want to clear that up. But what is your definition of inciting violence? Because I know there's been several that are going around. How it's legally written is inciting physical violence. Some people are meaning to take it as like misgendering or things along that nature, microaggressions. They're saying that's inciting violence.
All right.
It's really not.
That's time. Young Democrats, you have 30 seconds to reply.
I was just saying that free speech. I wasn't saying free speech should be free speech unless it's inciting violence to like broaden the definition of inciting violence. I was just saying legality of free speech over here, who we invite to speak on colleges over here, those are two separate topics. I guess I just agree with what the current law is about what is and is not inciting violence.
Yeah, and that's time. Great. So do we have...
Hi, my name is Liliana. So I just have a question for Turning Point. Is that the name? Okay. So I didn't understand y'all's question to, or your response to, should ICE be? What was the question? Should ICE be abolished? And I felt like the question kind of got away from both of the groups actually, because it kind of just turned more on focusing on like the presidency. So y'all stated